The Farne Islands off the coast of Northumberland offer maybe the best sea kayaking trip in all of England. It has history, it has wildlife, isolation, challenging tide races that require careful planning. It's just got something for everyone. It's a fantastic trip. When I first started sea kayaking, the Farnes were a place that I was desperate to get to. I knew, all about how amazing they were in terms of the wildlife and just, a fantastic piece of coastal scenery. But I was very aware that this place can be quite dangerous if you don't know what you're doing there. It has some big seas, some fast flowing tides, so it's not a place to be taken lightly. There are between 15 and 20 islands at the Farnes, depending on the state of the tide. These are separated between the inner and the outer group by Stable Sound, which runs between them. The Farnes are resistant igneous dolerite outcrops. They would have at one time been connected to the mainland by limestone, but this limestone has been eroded away, and with sea level rises after the last ice age, the Farnes now find themselves as islands in the sea between 1.5 and 4 3/4 miles from the mainland. I've paddled out to the Farnes maybe 10 or 12 times previously, but that was always with a group or with another quite experienced paddler, and this was to be my very first solo trip out there. As the tide floods south or ebbs north, the Farne Islands act like a finger over a hose, constricting the flow of water, making it run much faster. In places, this can exceed 5 knots on a big spring tide. When you add in the interaction between this flow and swell and wind conditions, then it can create some pretty exciting or dangerous conditions depending on your outlook and skill level. As this trip was a solo trip, I picked a fairly benign day. There was literally no movement in the sea at all, very light winds, and it was a neap tide, so the flow was not going to top more than 2.5 knots at the fastest. Perfect conditions for a sightseeing day with a camera. The day couldn't have started any better really. Although the sunrise was obscured by a thick sea fog, as soon as the sun rose, this quickly burned off and it turned into a gloriously sunny summer's day. I was treated to 3 harbour porpoises, surfing in about a foot of water off Bamburgh beach. I don't know if they were playing or fishing, but I tried to get them with the long lens, but being so small and moving so quickly, they proved quite hard to capture on film. I only managed to get a few glimpses of them, unfortunately. I set out from Harkness Rocks at the north end of Bamburgh Beach, and the flow south took me towards Megstone, the first island that you hit from this direction, and then from there I used the rest of the flow to kind of take me across the top of the islands towards Longstone, which I reached at about peak flow. I spent some time on Longstone getting some shots of the seals that call these islands their home. I had a look at the race out at Kniveston, but even with the lack of conditions, it was looking a little bit too fierce for me to take on by myself, so I decided against it on this day. Longstone Lighthouse was completed in 1826 and stands 26 metres tall. The light can be seen from 18 miles away out to sea, This used to be 24 miles, but in 2015 a new energy efficient LED bulb was fitted and the distance that it can be seen was reduced from 24 to 18 miles. The lighthouse is most famous as the home of Northumbrian heroine Grace Darling, who on the morning of the 7th of September 1838 saw a paddle steamer, the Forfarshire, wrecked on Big Harcar Rock, just a mile away from Longstone Island. Having lost power to its engines, the Forfarshire was blown onto Big Harcar Rock by gale force winds, where the raging seas broke her in two. Amazingly, Grace, just 22 at the time, assisted her father in rowing out to the island to rescue 9 survivors from this wreck. She was celebrated for her part in the rescue in her lifetime. However, she died just 4 years later. She's now buried in Saint Aidan's churchyard at Bamburgh. I spent some time filming the seals that call these islands their home as I waited for the tide to slow down a bit. I then used the last of the push south to take me around Big Harcar Island and across to the pinnacles on Staple Island. The Farne Islands are home to some 100,000 nesting seabirds. The most iconic of these is the puffin, with around 40,000 nesting pairs calling the island their home between the months of April and July. There were still a lot of them around, both on the rocks and collecting in large rafts on the sea. It won't be long before they're gone for this year, so it was nice to catch them before the departure. Unfortunately, however, the puffin is a species that is in decline globally, and I did see one in quite a sorry state on my paddle back towards Bamburgh. However, you know, nature can be cruel at times, and this is just all part of nature. There really isn't a better backdrop to paddle back towards than Bamburgh Castle. It provides a great landmark, and it's just amazing landing your boat in the surf underneath such an amazing castle with such history behind it. This was an awesome trip, about 12 miles in total, but assisted by the tide on the way out and the way back. The Farne Islands is just an absolute treat of a paddle.